The first thing that actually really shocked me is the industrialization of puppy farming. On this show, we generally talk a bit more about the climate science, fitness, nutrition, and not too much about the ethics. And so when I'm talking around, obviously we've talked about adopting and not shopping a lot of times because it is actually atrocious. Like looking at RACV, there's tens of thousands of cats and dogs and other animals that actually get euthanized every year because they can't get adopted. They don't have the facilities or the funding available to keep that. So obviously, blanket rule, adopt, don't shop. But what exactly do you mean with industrialized puppy farming?
So in New South Wales, there's no limit on the number of female dogs that any one person can have, and absolutely no limit on the number of litters that she can be forced to endure. So you could have 1,000 dogs living in kennels for their entire lives and being forced to pump out litter after litter for their entire lives. That is puppy farming, and it's perfectly legal in New South Wales. It was outlawed in Victoria. Their legislation effectively outlawed it. So they've put a cap on the number of female breeders to 10, and also they've capped the number of litters that any female dog can have. But what we've seen in New South Wales is a lot of the puppy farmers in Victoria have simply moved across the border into New South Wales, where our laws are failing these companion animals. And so it's becoming the puppy farming hub of Australia. We're talking to councils literally on the border. One of them recently had an application for a farm with 600 female dogs. Now, you've got to remember as well, this is for the female dogs. On top of that, you've got the male dogs that the animals will breed with. Plus, if you've got 400 of them at any one time with litters of puppies, there's not even any staffing ratios for these places in New South Wales. So some of these places, they might just have one or two people living on the property that is supposedly meant to provide the care for all of those animals. That's why I say it's industrialised, and that's why I say it's an industry, because we're literally pumping out puppies from these facilities. And I think a lot of people who are looking to bring a companion animal into their home don't realise that that's actually what's happening behind the scenes, and that most animals that are being sold through pet shops and online are actually coming from these sorts of facilities.
So I'm not big in the world of pets or companion animals, which is probably the more PC term. I'm not understanding how there's a trade for this, because pet shops, like I haven't seen one in many, many years anywhere. So where are people going? Or is there a way that we can stop this or regulate this? Or is there like a black market situation going on?
So a lot of these animals are being sold online. And of course, online sales and pet shops end up being smoke screens for these exact types of facilities. And the problem is a lot of people go online, they see these beautiful images of these puppies living in these idyllic situations, and they go and meet this person at a meeting place, or the animal gets delivered to their home. And so they never actually realise that those animals are coming from puppy farms. We get a lot of calls from people that suddenly have this very sick puppy, and then they do their research and they realise that maybe they've accidentally bought from one of these puppy farms. But because it's not illegal, even organisations like the RSPCA that would investigate these places when complaints come through, they're very limited on what they can actually do to shut them down, because puppy farming is still legal. Look, our big thing, obviously, is adopt, don't shop. There are so many loving companion animals at rescue centres. And there's also pet shops now that actually just adopt animals from rescue centres as well. And so that's proven to be a really successful business model, to actually work as an adoption centre, and then to obviously make their profit from selling the items that animal will need. They'll need a bed, they'll need food, they might need a litter tray. There is a shift sort of within that pet shop sort of industry, but there's still massive numbers of animals that are being sold online as well. And so, our legislation really works towards a licensing scheme, so that anybody who sells an animal online can be tracked, and they can be traced down and they can be inspected. And we also require them to be inspected every single year and registered with council to be able to, have this breeder licensing number. There has to be some kind of a regulation around the breeding of animals, so that we don't have those kind of conditions where you've got 600 dogs being forced to pump out litters.